Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Oh,
Today we're looking at something that I think a lot of us struggle with.
yeah.
Fear and creativity, specifically in music production.
Interesting.
We've got a great article here from Full Time Music Pro called How to Use Fear as a Compass in Music Production and Life.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Using fear as a compass.
And then also a really interesting Reddit thread that I found on music production, just titled, very plainly, Why Am I So Scared to Start Making Music?
I think we've all been there
Oh, absolutely.
at some point.
Yeah, and this thread is full of people who are experiencing this fear.
Right.
So hopefully, by looking at these two different sources together, we can come up with some new ways to maybe look at this fear
Okay.
and hopefully come away with some actionable steps.
Awesome.
So to jump right in this
Okay.
article, How to Use Fear as a Compass. They talk about this idea that a lot of really successful music producers, they don't avoid fear.
Okay.
They actually kind of use it as a way to point them in the right direction.
Interesting.
So for example,
Yeah.
that hesitation that you feel
Right.
when you're about to share a track and you think, oh my gosh, what if this is terrible?
Yeah.
That feeling is actually a sign that you're onto something.
Okay.
That there's something there that's important to you.
So it's almost like it's an indicator that there's something worth exploring further.
Exactly.
Instead of just being like, oh, I'm scared, I'm going to stop.
Right.
Like, okay, there's something here that's making me feel this way, so let's dig deeper.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time, too, fear is kind of masking a deeper desire.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you're terrified of sharing your music,
Yeah.
maybe it's because deep down you really want people to hear it.
Right.
Like you've poured your heart and soul into it.
You've put so much of yourself into it.
Exactly. And so that fear is actually a sign that you've created something that's really meaningful to you.
Okay. So fear is not necessarily a
Yeah.
bad thing.
No, not at all.
It can actually kind of point us
Yeah.
to the things that we should be doing more of.
Exactly. It's just about reframing how we view it.
Okay.
Like instead of seeing it as this like stop sign,
Right.
we can look at it as a compass guiding us towards something that's important to us.
I like that.
Yeah.
So the article also makes this point that the fear of not doing something
Okay.
needs to be bigger than the fear of doing it.
Hmm.
And they suggest this exercise of imagining yourself a year from now. And in one scenario,
Yeah.
you let the fear win
Okay.
and you didn't do the thing,
Right.
whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
In the other scenario, you went for it.
Okay.
And just thinking about which version of you is going to be happier.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the fear itself.
Right.
It's about the consequences
Yes.
of letting that fear control you
Exactly.
and potentially missing out on opportunities or experiences.
Yeah. So let's shift gears for a second and talk about this Reddit thread. Why am I so scared to start making music?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
And the person who posted this,
Mm-hmm.
they're saying that they have the gear, they have the passion, they want to do it.
They have everything they need.
They have everything they need,
But that fear,
but they just can't get started.
Yeah.
They're frozen.
it's like this invisible barrier
Yes.
that's preventing them from actually doing what they want to do.
And I think what's so interesting about this thread is how many other people are saying the same thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, this is a really common,
It's a universal experience, I think.
yeah, this is a really common experience.
Especially in music production where it feels so personal and vulnerable to put your work out there.
Yeah, like putting yourself out there
Exactly.
in such a creative way.
It can be really intimidating.
Yeah. And so one of the top comments
Okay.
on this thread comes from a user named Wooby.
Wooby? Okay.
And their advice is so simple.
Okay.
I'm curious.
But I think it's really profound.
They say, music is art, art is play, start with play, explore, experiment.
I love that.
Isn't that great?
It's so simple, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we get so caught up in the end goal
Mm-hmm.
that we forget about the joy of the process.
The joy of just playing around.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's what Wooby is getting at here,
Mm-hmm.
is that if we can approach music production
Yeah.
with that sense of playfulness,
Right.
it takes the pressure off.
Totally.
It's not about creating this perfect masterpiece.
Mhm.
It's just about exploring and experimenting and having fun.
And seeing what happens.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because so many of the other comments in this thread
Yeah.
are people saying like, oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly what I needed to hear.
Like a light bulb moment
Yes.
for a lot of people, I think.
It's like they've been putting so much pressure on themselves
Yeah.
to create something
Perfect and polished.
amazing right from the start.
Right out of the gate.
And that's just not realistic.
It's not, and it takes the fun out of it.
Exactly.
And when it's not fun anymore, that's when you start to get discouraged and you might even give up.
Yeah. And I think that's what we see in a lot of these comments is that fear is leading to this feeling of being overwhelmed
Absolutely.
and feeling like they're not good enough.
And like they're not even going to try because what's the point?
Yeah. So it's interesting to see
Yeah.
how that fear can actually be paralyzing.
It's like it's holding them back from even taking that first step.
And even seasoned producers experience this fear too.
Oh, totally. I think everyone does to some extent.
Right.
It's just that some people are better at managing it or pushing through it.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're going to explore in this deep dive.
Okay.
Is how can we learn to manage that fear
Right.
and not let it control us?
I'm excited to dig into that.
Me too.
Let's do it.
So one thing that stood out to me in this Reddit thread
Yeah.
is how many people talked about specific anxieties. Like they're terrified of finishing tracks.
That's interesting.
They're afraid of what's going to happen when their music is out in the world.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah. One user even said, I'm scared of realizing my music knowing it's not perfect.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting?
It's like they're already anticipating the disappointment before they even finish the song.
And I think it speaks to this like universal fear of judgment
Absolutely.
that we all have.
I think everyone worries about what other people will think.
Right. Especially when you're putting something so personal out there.
Especially something as creative as music.
Yeah.
It's like a piece of your soul.
Yeah. It's like you're putting your heart on your sleeve.
Exactly.
And saying, here, judge this.
It's very vulnerable.
Yeah. And we see that in a lot of these comments. Like people saying, I'm afraid that all my efforts will fall on deaf ears.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. It's like they're already bracing themselves for disappointment.
Yeah. And that can be so paralyzing. Because if you're already expecting to fail, then why even bother trying?
Exactly.
So I think it's important to acknowledge that fear.
Okay.
But also to find ways to move past it.
Yeah.
And focus on the things that we can control.
Right.
Like our effort and our dedication to the craft.
So it sounds like what you're saying is we need to find a way to balance like acknowledging the fear, but not letting it completely control us.
Exactly.
Okay.
Delicate balance.
But there's this other side to the thread too.
Oh, yeah.
Where people are like,
okay,
you got to embrace the imperfection.
I like that. I mean, perfect is the enemy of good, right?
Right.
Like sometimes we get so caught up in trying to make everything perfect that we never actually finish anything.
Or even start.
Exactly.
And there were these people who were basically saying, just churn out music. Like, don't worry about it being good.
Interesting.
Just focus on making it. Like producing a metric ton of
stuff.
Just get it out there.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the quality so much.
Yeah, like just get it out.
Yeah, just make stuff.
And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it kind of goes against this idea of like...
It's kind of counterintuitive.
You know, we want to make good music.
Right.
But I also see what they're saying.
Yeah,
that
I do.
Sometimes we get so caught up in the details.
Yeah, you can get lost in the weeds.
That we lose sight of the bigger picture.
Right. And the joy of creating.
Right.
Like sometimes you just got to let go.
Exactly.
And have fun with it.
And that's what I kept seeing.
Yeah.
Over and over again in this thread.
Okay.
Was people saying like, just do it.
Yeah, just start.
Just start.
Doesn't matter if it's good or not.
Yeah.
Just get going.
Just begin the journey of 1,000 miles. Starts with one step.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
That's a good one.
Isn't that good?
Someone else said, turn everything on and go. Don't worry. Let your vibe and spirit guide you.
I love that.
So good.
It's like just trust your intuition.
Yeah, and trust the process.
Yeah.
And just see where it takes you.
Exactly, because you never know what you might discover along the way.
And another one that I loved was, make it for you, not for consumption.
Oh, that's a good one.
Isn't that great?
It's like a reminder that you don't have to share everything you create.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to make music just for yourself.
Right. And that ties back to what we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
With that fear of not creating.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you regret not trying?
Right.
More than you would regret making something that's not perfect.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like that fear of regret can be even more powerful.
And the fear of judgment.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking long term. Like, what am I going to feel when I look back on my life?
Right.
Am I going to regret the things that I did?
Yeah.
Or the things that I didn't do?
And I think a lot of people would say they regret the things they didn't do.
And that's what I see in this thread a lot, too,
Yeah.
is people talking about, like, that feeling of what if?
Yeah.
Like, what if I had just started making music?
What if I had finished that track?
Yeah.
What if I had shared my music with the world?
What if I had just taken that leap?
Right.
And the article talks about this too, like feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
That's so important because fear doesn't have to be a roadblock.
Right.
It can actually be the fuel that propels you forward.
And there was this one commenter who said that they only make music when they're feeling really intense emotions.
Interesting.
Yeah, like they almost need that like intensity to get them over the hump.
Almost like they need that emotional push to overcome the fear.
And it just got me thinking.
Yeah.
Like maybe we need to reframe our relationship with discomfort.
I like that. Yeah. Reframing discomfort.
Instead of seeing challenges as obstacles.
Yeah.
What if we view them as opportunities to grow? To break through those barriers.
I like that.
That we've created for ourselves.
It's a shift in perspective.
Yeah.
From seeing challenges as something to be avoided to seeing them as opportunities for growth and learning.
Exactly.
I like that a lot.
So let's bring it back to our listener for a second.
Okay.
If you're listening to this right now.
Yeah.
And you're feeling that fear, that hesitation.
That's holding you back.
What is one small step you can take today to move past it? We talked about that playfulness, and I think that's a really good place to start.
Yeah.
What if you just sat down for like 30 minutes?
Okay.
Opened up your DAW and just played around.
Just experiment.
Yeah. No pressure to create anything.
All right.
Just
to have fun.
Explore new instruments, new sounds.
See what happens.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're finding that a little daunting, remember the power of community?
Oh, yeah.
Like, this Reddit thread was full of people.
Supporting each other.
Yeah, offering advice.
Sharing their struggle.
Exactly. It's so helpful to know that you're not alone in this.
Right.
So reach out to other producers, join online forums. Find a mentor.
That's a good idea.
Sometimes just voicing your fears can help you gain some perspective.
Okay.
And find the courage to move forward.
And actually, speaking of time.
Okay.
That was another thing that kept coming up in this Reddit thread.
What was that?
People were worried about wasting time.
Oh, yeah.
Like putting in all this effort and not getting the results that they want.
I can see that.
Yeah.
It's a valid concern.
Totally.
We all have limited time and energy.
Right.
It's natural to want to invest them wisely.
So how do we deal with that?
Well, I wonder if we could reframe that perspective a little bit. What if instead of thinking about time spent creating as a potential waste, we saw it as an investment?
Okay.
An investment in ourselves, in our skills, in our well-being.
So even if that music doesn't reach millions of listeners, it's still valuable because of that we gained from it.
It's about acknowledging the intrinsic rewards of the creative process itself.
It's a good point.
The joy of exploring new sounds the satisfaction of solving a tricky production problem.
Right.
The sense of accomplishment that comes with bringing something new into existence.
And those are all things that nobody can take away from you.
Exactly. Those are all valuable rewards.
Yeah.
Regardless of external validation.
Which I think brings us back to that idea of using fear as a compass.
Yeah.
Maybe that fear of wasting time is actually pointing us
towards something
important. Like maybe it's a sign that we need to reevaluate our priorities and make space for the things that bring us joy.
The things that matter to us.
Even if they don't lead to some kind of huge success.
Exactly. And sometimes those are the things that end up being the most fulfilling.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
I
want to ask you, the listener, what resonated with you the most today?
Yeah.
What is one small step that you can take right now to push past that fear and engage with music production in a more playful and fearless way?
Maybe it's setting aside 30 minutes to experiment with a new synth plugin.
Okay.
Maybe it's finally finishing that track you've been putting off.
Yeah.
Maybe it's reaching out to a fellow producer for feedback or starting a collaboration.
Ooh, collaboration.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Whatever it is, remember this.
Okay.
The very act of creating, regardless of the outcome, can be an antidote to the fear itself.
So by allowing ourselves to play, to experiment, to make mistakes, we're not just making music, we're cultivating courage.
We're building resilience.
And we're deepening that connection to our own creativity.
Yeah, and you know, who knows?
What?
Maybe in the process of facing our fears, of embracing the unknown,
we'll
stumble upon something truly magical.
Ooh, I like that.
Something that not only surprises us, but also inspires others.
Until next time.
Keep creating.
Keep exploring.
And keep pushing.
Past those self-imposed limits.
Yes.